Well, hello and welcome to Take Me Forward, the chat. My name is Wendy Komadina and thank you for joining this episode. Today we're going to be talking about leading with insecurity. I have a really exciting guest that I have asked to join me today, and the reason I was really keen to talk about this topic is that as a leader or as an individual who is focused on succeeding in life and in work, there are many times when you just don't know which path to take. You feel like you're a failure. There are obstacles that you're confronted with. So today we're going to hear some stories from somebody who I have huge respect for, who's taken some very big risks in his career, huge failures, but he's come out the other end and he has some really interesting strategies to help you navigate and help you think about how you navigate through insecurities. Well, hello. My name is Wendy Komadina. Thank you for joining Take Me Forward, the chat. I am joined today by Sidney Minassian, the CEO of Impact Ladder. Now, before I introduce Sidney, I actually want to share a quick story about how we met, because I want to take you back to why you made such a huge impression on me and why it's really exciting to talk to you today.
Okay.
So a long time ago, back in the day when we were younger and, feistier perhaps.
We're still young and feisty, my friend. It's all good. We're just warming up, as I tell my kids.
I was working at Cisco and you got my attention because you were leading an organisation called Contexti. And look, fast forward, you made such a huge impression on me and you said something to me that got my attention and I have never forgotten. You called yourself a serial entrepreneur, and because you did that, I thought, I want to associate myself with this person. I don't know how, I don't know where, so I'm a little bit of a stalker and a fangirl. So Sidney, thank you for joining. If you don't mind maybe introducing yourself to our listeners, and we're here today to talk about leadership, but not leadership in the way that most people think about leadership. I want to hear about the scars, the dark stories. So
there's a few of those. Well, Thank you for the warm introduction, and you've also made a very memorable impression on me with your energy and your warmth, and I think you are a go-getter, and so as I said, we're just getting started. So lots of opportunities to create impact and create value both for people and for businesses. So anyway, watch this space for both of us, I think.
Yeah.
Sidney from Sydney. It's a real thing. That's the name.
I love
it. Today I'm an advisor and speaker. I work with founders and CEOs. Fundamentally, I work at the intersection of strategy, innovation, leadership, and growth. They're all connected.
Yeah.
And as I like to say, half my work is in the strategic and tactical and go-to-market and AI innovation things. But the other half that's really important, we're going to dig into that today, is people's leadership style. What is the version of you that allows you to become the leader the company needs for you to take it to where you want to take it, right? And when we say leadership, I think the things we're going to talk about, of course, impact startup, scale-ups, large enterprise. But I want to bring it really home because we're all leaders in one way or another, for our families, for our kids, for our communities. And I think there's lots of lessons around mindset, resilience, presence, and things like that we'll talk about. So quick background, 25 years of doing various tech ventures, Australia, Silicon Valley, credit card funded, venture funded, made money, lost money, been wiped out, come back from the dead, used to be taller.
I should laugh. But I you know what I love? I love the honesty. Some people, in fact, I shouldn't say some, I'm going to say the majority of people I meet don't want to talk about their failures because they see that as I will be labelled or branded as a failure. So I actually love that you've just very openly said, look, I've come back from the dead.
Yeah, and the people who've heard me speak before or have met me at places before, that intro, actually I just give as a standard. Like whoever I'll meet, I'll tell them like straight up. I have had the gift of a failure, a wipeout. I've had to learn how to bounce back and how to make a comeback story, and that's why it's sweeter, right?
Yeah. Why this topic for me was important, and I hope that it resonates with the listeners, is that I wasn't always a leader. It's taken me many years of experience to reach a point where I was leading an organisation that was large. But even as a leader, you definitely don't have all the answers, and you need to take risks. And I started to observe that there are leaders who are afraid to take risks because they're afraid that if they make a mistake, they will be exposed, or they don't feel secure in themselves to take a risk. And that's one element of your personality and your style that I found actually really, really interesting, and I wanted to dive into. So going on that path, can you share a little bit about examples, or maybe even one story around a time that you felt like you were leading either a project or one of the companies that you were working on, and you just didn't have the answers. You felt insecure.
So I think when you say one time, I mean, geez, we're all making it up every day as we go. And there is nothing wrong with saying that. Like a lot of people shy away from it. You don't know, does that mean there's that? But no, actually, if you think you know it, that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and I keep saying this, the older I get, I realize I know nothing and I control nothing, which is not a defeating statement. It's actually an empowering one, which says I'm going to stay more on point, be more present, put all my feelers out 24/7 and be receptive, because the world is changing, the markets are changing, your kids are changing, it's not how we used to do things anymore. And if you think you've got it figured out, you're in trouble. So anyway, we might come back to that. But so look, I think my biggest failure story is when I'd raised over $6 million, packed up wife and kids, moved to Silicon Valley. This is 15 years ago. I'd come off the back of a first tech business where we built project management workflow software, which was semi-successful, which we got into CBA, Deloitte, Wesfarmers, Colliers, and that was a big deal given that was my first hustle. I'd never done enterprise software sales. I'd only ever sold myself as a consultant and learning how to sell into that. And we had this aha moment that all these platforms of choice that we enterprises buy, Salesforce and SharePoint, and all these systems are meant to be systems of record, but they don't actually help the individual do their jobs. Mm-hmm. The things we use every day to do our jobs, and it's still true today, is communication systems, email, SMS, chat messages, and all critical data that we want, actions, issues, decisions, leads, are all locked up in those systems. And then someone at the end of the week or fortnight or time for commission payment time comes around going, you've not updated your opportunity in Salesforce, you're not going to get paid your commissions, or where is that issue? It should be in that issue log, or where's the task? So anyway, our vision back then was, what if we used natural language processing, which we would call today AI, to capture information at the point of creation in the system of choice of professionals, so you didn't have to change human behavior. So big vision, pitched it, took a bit of effort, got $1 million in private money with some high profile CEOs around Australia, then followed on by a venture capital round by Southern Cross Venture Partners, packed up wife and kids, moved to the Bay Area, and we had this vision of launching this business. We were in stealth mode for a bit, building and getting prepared to launch this next generation technology. I I hired the ex-corporate vice president of Hewlett Packard as my sales VP, who thought he'd retired, but we talked him out of retirement to join us. I had a really amazing team around me. Ex-head of communications at Apple was my PR consultant. So before we even launched, I'd run the best go-to-market strategy, seeded the bloggers, TechCrunch, Read Write Week, whatever it was called, Read Write Web, VentureBeat, you name it. I'd done the work. went and launched the company at a place called Demo. So there's TechCrunch and there's Demo, where startups launch their businesses. TechCrunch is the more consumer B2C. Demo is where Salesforce, Citrix, VMware launched their businesses. So I was like, no, we're like B2B, so I'll launch there. Won the People's Choice Award, $1 million prize. Got, again, recovered by all the major bloggers, and then all the acquirers came flying in. AOL Mail, Yahoo Mail, because they were no longer relevant because Gmail was eating their lunch. Yes. This is 2010. BlackBerry out of Canada, because Apple had released iPhone 2, and they were like, oh, this is a corporate tool. It wasn't just for the creative kids. Salesforce, Jive Software, you name it. And I was like sitting there going, I had dollar signs in my eyes. I'm like, I'm going to walk home with millions and I'm buying up half of the North Shore.
Everybody's dream.
Yeah. So we went from that point to the next 12 months. Ran out of money, and it was GFC, so we couldn't get another round of funding. Product didn't work as advertised. So even though we had a great demo and lots of beta customers that I'd secured, we didn't deliver on the promise. And a fatal fallout with my technical co-founder.
Wow.
So I was in a position, and then we were there and we had our third child. Young Dylan was at the time 30 days old. It was just after Thanksgiving, and I had to shut down the company, let 20 people go, and tell the board, look, we're in a bad situation. Do not put any follow-on funding in this. Even though I couldn't raise externally, they may have tried to keep us afloat, but I was like, everything's wrong.
That's intense.
Product's wrong, we're wrong, I'm broken, relationship's broken. I want to put money into this, and they appreciated that, and a lot of them have kept in touch with me since. But
so before you go on, there's so much to unpack in just that little piece.
yes.
But before you go on and talk about the failure, I actually want to talk about the very beginning of that idea, because so let's go back to the original topic. The original topic is around leading through insecurity.
Yes.
And at the very beginning, you talked about how you identified an opportunity, but you had never actually sold enterprise software. It wasn't you were originally doing consulting. So yes. I want you to take me back to, how did you, being a person who just didn't have the information and the knowledge, how did you build the skills, the knowledge to actually even fake it till you made it type of thing?
Yeah. So obviously I've gotten more philosophical as time has gone on, where you look back and things start making sense, and you understand yourself more, you understand the world more, you think you understand. But this is my current understanding, subject to change after this recording. Immediately, because we're going to learn something new. But we all have extraordinary capabilities inside of us. It's just the stretch of our imagination, right? And if you have whatever, actually I will say, if you have good intent, even if you have bad intent, you can still achieve what you want to achieve, right? It doesn't matter. That judgmental side, I've learned not to do, because who knows what's good or not really, right? But if you have intent and you want to do something, this is the bit I'm going to go a bit woo-woo, the universe provides immediately. There's answers right there and then, right? And it's our job to pick up the signals and the availability that's there. Whereas if we're like, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that, and you keep looking down and you keep looking at all the lack, that's where you stay, because you can justify whatever story you tell yourself, you're right. So my intention was actually to solve a problem. So the couple of things I've learned over time is, it's not about you, it's about them. Who is the them? It's the people you want to serve. Your customers, your family, your kids, your wife, your husband, your whatever, right? And so when you make it about them, you become resourceful. When you make it about you, when you're worried about you, that's where insecurity kicks in. And that's where so it's been done before, it's been doable, and then there is this ego aspect as well. I want to do something that no one else has done. So there was a part of that previously drove me a lot, and there's probably resonance of that still drives me, where I get excited if I've done something new, right? And impressed the crowd.
So I'm going to interject there to actually, I didn't know you were going to say that, because you and I have had lots of conversations on and off through the years, and that's something that I actually didn't know about you that we had in common. So I am quite a gutsy person, and I throw myself into things that I probably have no business to know anything about. I just don't. But I do believe that the mistake many people make is they think up an idea, or they dream of a goal, be it a business goal or a personal goal, and they already start thinking about all the reasons why they're not going to achieve that goal.
Yes.
And the first thing that I learned when I first got into the workforce was around the universe will provide. So your job is to look for the signals. And when you start looking for the yellow car, you'll find it.
100%.
When you start looking for the red flag in the crowd, you'll find the red flag, and all of a sudden all you see are all the red flags or the white flags or the yellow cars. So I just wanted to pick up on that, because that's something that I think is, it's a very important trait for a person who is very goal orientated and determined to, at all costs, to achieve something.
Yeah, I was going to share this maybe a bit later, but maybe it's a good time to share it. And I already made reference to this. We all have extraordinary capabilities. And as I said, half my work is helping leaders become the versions of themselves that is worthy, right? And they aspire to. So when you think about becoming the extraordinary version of Wendy, becoming the extraordinary version of you, and the listeners, the extraordinary version of you, at the extraordinary version, we are in a state of flow, right? That's our zone of genius. We have all the things going well for us, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, things are great, right? And so you think about that and you go, well, if that's an extraordinary state, why do most people struggle along just with the ordinary, let alone be able to play at the extraordinary level? If it sounds that good, if all those things are great, then why aren't we playing there every day, or most of the time? So I've had to think about this a lot, right? Given my journey and then the work that I do, and how do I give teachable, memorable frameworks for people to work through this? So I've come up with something that's potentially worth sharing, which is we all have the capacity to become our extraordinary, but we're fighting 3 blocks: the mirror, the whistle, and the compass.
Oh, I love this. Tell me where this is going. The mirror yourself would be yourself.
The mirror is all the self-talk. Oh, I'm an immigrant, I came to this country, my name was Sidney, so they teased me a lot at school. I was an asthmatic, I couldn't, do all the sports that I wanted to do. I've had a business failure, and whatever narrative it is, and like this extends to whoever you are, like I'm gay, I'm straight, I'm this, I'm that, whatever it is that and it's on autopilot.
It is on autopilot.
It's running every day. When you're brushing your teeth, combing your hair, it's running, and you're not even aware that it's running.
And so everyone has their thing.
Everyone has their version of it, right? And
they
everyone has a story. And look, I'm not reducing people's experiences and trigger points and traumas and abuse, and I get it. But what I'm hopefully putting a light of spark in you is that you have a chance for moving forward from this day onwards to change your own narrative and turn it into something where it's empowering. So Sidney, that got teased to the point where I was the most hated kid in kindergarten year 1 because I would end up in fights, ended up becoming school vice captain by the end of year 6.
Impressive.
Because I had to figure out I can't keep fighting everyone. And now I introduce myself as Sidney from Sydney to manage, right? Now, that's nowhere as traumatic as someone who has been physically abused, sexually abused. I get that. So I'm not reducing that. I'm not reducing that. But what I'm saying is the stories are in your hands, and be aware of the stories that are running and you're allowing for it to play. That's the mirror. The whistle is outside noise, other people's opinions. And unfortunately, it starts with your parents. They have an opinion on what you should do with your life, what you should study, which university you should go to, or you should go to university or not go to university, who you should marry, and then we move into the state other influences. If you're religious, how you should live your life, and then whether you've gone to university, did you do a PhD? What does that mean about you? So on and so forth, all the way to every day we judge ourselves on people on Instagram, and we compare ourselves and feel bad because we're comparing to other people's goals, objectives and standards and not feeling good. And again, it's the whistle, we're not aware of it, but that blocks us from becoming our extraordinary because it's back to all the reasons. It's either I've come up with the reason or someone else has told me the reason why I can't get to where I want to get to.
So many stories are in my head of whistles.
Yeah.
Whistles are everywhere.
Whistles are everywhere. And
They
when I
really
tell
are.
this to people, people go, oh my God, Sidney, I caught myself in the mirror.
Yes.
Or Sidney, I've caught a whistle situation. And the final one is the compass, which is the misalignment to your true north. So what you're feeling and thinking on the inside, you're not portraying or pursuing on the outside, usually because of the first two reasons, the mirror or the whistle. Like, here's an example. Because of the whistle, what society expects of me, I went and took a big ass mortgage to buy a house that really I can't afford, to keep up with the Joneses, or to be seen as being smart, not wasting money on renting. But now I'm stuck in a job that's sucking the life out of me, but it's like crack cocaine. I'm used to the paycheck and I'm literally stuck. I have to pay the mortgage. Everyone, my husband, my wife, my kids are expecting this life now that I credit, but it's not authentic. And if tomorrow I won the lottery, I would not be doing that job. I would not be working for that leader. They are a-holes.
Yeah.
And I hear that so many times. And so that stops us. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is that recognition that these things exist. We have the opportunity to change the narrative, and also opportunities to reassess our priorities and do aligned work. And we've spoken about this off camera as well, right? When we go, what do we want to do? It has to be aligned work. Otherwise, life is short. What are we doing?
Wow, that was that's so inspiring, and I actually really love that, Sidney. So thank you for sharing that. I want to go back to now your original story. So just to recap for the listeners, in case they've got lost along the way, I certainly haven't. Is that so? We started off talking about insecurities leading through insecurities. You don't really know the answers. So I love the concept that you've just talked us through around the mirror, the whistle, and the compass. Okay, so I've got that. So going back to your story, you talked about how you took some really big risks. You didn't have all the tools or the knowledge to deliver on a solution that you were positioning, but you came through. So fast forward, you were about to go into the story around the GFC hit.
Yes.
And suddenly you were faced with having to relocate your whole family back to Sydney, 30-day-old baby, investors. So take us back now.
I will. And you also asked another question which I didn't fully get to answer. So yeah, here I am left with, have shut down the company, and that business, I bankrolled it before having taken external money. So my house was on the line. So I actually lost my house as well with that.
Wow,
so I'm
scary.
$500,000 in debt, 3 kids in the US, the 30-day-old child, the youngest, and I've actually got 10 days to leave the country because my visa is attached to the entity that is giving me the working visa. And over there, the way it works, you've got 10 days. So imagine, we've got the house set up, everything, we have to go. And so how do you come back from that, right? So a few things. One, it's not about you, it's about them.
When you say about them, are you talking?
So
who
at that
the
time, the them, firstly it's my family, to making sure there's food on the table. Because literally I felt like I was the CEO, I've also lost my job, right? So there's no cash
money
flow
coming in.
So
Plus now there's no house.
Yeah, forget about the house. The house was back in Australia. We were renting in the US. I lost the house in Australia because that was the...
But that's what I mean.
Yeah,
You're
so
going back to no house.
Nothing. So, firstly, it's like people, like a lot of people say, well, how did you not go into depression, and and I'm like, look, I'm blessed. Maybe there's something that is just nature for me, right? That is just a survivor that way. But when I think about it, I just didn't have time to sit there and worry it happened. I felt massively responsible to everyone, my investors, my co-founder who I had a fallout with, my team that I had to fire right on Thanksgiving, my family back home were worrying, because on the one hand, imagine this high of I'm in negotiations, or I'm having first, second round M&A meetings with Salesforce to buy the company. That's the news I'm sharing back home. The next story is like, no, we've lost everything and forget about the house. We've lost that too. Like, what?
That's a big
So
about
big
face.
emotional thing, right? So it's not about it. So taking care of others, it was a big thing that got me focused and got me out of any potential downward spiral. So that was one thing. Secondly, I doubled down on my home ground advantage. And I did something similar when I was coming out of consulting into my first tech company, where I went, okay, I've just come out of the CBA Colonial integration merger as a project program manager. I could see the complexity in running projects. You need a centralized tool. And I went back to those companies to sell enterprise project management software, which is what we built in the first company. So it's not about you, it's about them. Double down on home ground advantage, and you've got those, right? So look for that. And the point that we made before, look for the signals, because the signals are there.
How do you get yourself into a mindset where you're not listening to the whistle, you're actually, and you're paying attention to the signals? People tend to discard it if it doesn't look exactly how they imagine the goal to be served up.
Yeah.
So you are Sidney, obviously from Sydney, with your motivation and your personality, but how would you advise somebody that doesn't have that?
Sometimes some people have to hit rock bottom before they wake up and go, I've had enough of this. So if they're not taking action yet, it's okay. They like complaining, or they get used to themselves complaining, and that becomes the default mode. But for them to take real action is when they actually wake up and go, how long am I going to put up with this? How long am I going to put up with this, where it's a situation, whether it's work or relationship or whatever, where it's below acceptable, or how long am I going to put up with this where I know I have potential to create an impact or become the best version of me or do my life's best work in the universe, but I'm still being lazy, or I'm still letting stories run in my head and not taking the risk that I need to take. But there has to come a point where you move away from pain towards pleasure, right?
I see a lot of people, at the moment the market's very crowded. So I've been to a bunch of different events and I saw you at one of them, and I've never seen so many experienced professionals who are currently unhappy. And they're either in a transitional phase or they're doing different things and they're not in a happy place. But I'm also not seeing movement towards, this is what I'm doing about it to change my situation. So you are right, people are happy to complain and sit in their unhappiness, and that becomes their story.
Yes.
It becomes their story.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this company's not great, or the manager's awful, and I don't believe in the culture or the strategy, da 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 da. So what are you doing about it? I don't know.
What I've learned is without this mindset and this approach, there's no way you're going to achieve that, right? And so this is not me coming from I'm sitting on, multi-millions and success, therefore you guys should do. No, it's like, no, I'm hustling. That's what I said. The best work's ahead of me, and I keep telling my kids, I'm just warming up. I've just come to the starting line. It's just exciting of what's ahead, because I've got still a lot of youth left in me, and I've got a bunch of wisdom from the journey that I've traveled. I
think you need the examples, and you talked about it earlier that your one of your blessings is actually failure. Because you failed, now you know how to do it better next time.
Yes. How
to reinvent yourself. So let's talk about Contexty now, because that's when I met you. So I met you when before all of the hard stuff happened.
Yeah.
Actually, I shouldn't say that, because there's probably a whole bunch of other hard stuff that happened. But so how did you come back? So again, quick recap, you had the big business, GFC happened, you relocated back to Sydney.
No, I was staying in the US for a year.
Oh, you stayed in the US?
Then I figured out how to keep that shell, right?
So the shell allowed you to stay in the US. I didn't know that thing.
Yeah, and then I was trying to figure out, and I was in Disneyland, effectively. Like, imagine me in the middle of Silicon Valley where all this is going on, and they're like, and now you can be involved in this business and that business, and be, and I was getting involved in lots of things, and I was placed myself at the Plug and Play Tech Center, where it's like a we work, but just for tech companies, right? So everyone was there, events all the time, networking every day. It was Disneyland, and and they loved the Sydney from Sydney and Aussie accent, and I just played it.
Well, that was
really
your differentiator.
I played it really well. And yeah, so I was looking for the next big thing. Like, so do the consulting advisory work, but wait for the timing to do the next big thing. And I was trying to figure it out, and then found out someone very close to home was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh no.
And I was like, what am I doing here? Like, the grandparents are missing out on the grandkids are missing out on the grandparents, and it was the only set of grandkids at the time for my parents at the time. I'm literally restarting my business career. I could do it anywhere. Maybe I should be back home because of the eldest child, whatever, psychological safety for them and whatever. So anyway, we decided to come back. And then I thought, Sid, enough of your ego. You need to take a job. Do the right thing by the family, So called around while I was there. Fairly well, I'm blessed with good connections, and I've been, again, very transparent, very open. People knew. So actually a couple of the very senior executives who'd given the first million all offered me jobs in their large companies, because they went, we can't believe how far you took this. We were thinking you would have tapped out long ago, but you still went through hell and come and run this, come and run that for us. I was meant to be their director for New South Wales for PS, professional solutions. Mm-hmm. And so I was meant to run that and landed, and there's a big team in Melbourne, but I was meant to start the Sidney practice, and I've hit the ground running and set up all these meetings, but then very quickly, like day 2, day 3, I'm meeting with the other UXC sister companies and figure out they're all doing exactly the same thing. And I'm like, what? Like, I thought you guys are doing advisory, we're doing delivery. No. Billable work.
So they're competing against each other.
Everyone's competing against each other. And I was like, call my CEO, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And he goes, oh, they're not meant to be doing that. Let me talk to the group MD. Group MD, message goes up, comes back down. Tell Sid to quit complaining and get on with his job. And I was on a really good package, right? So back to that crack cocaine where I was like, I secured a big gig. I was like, but this doesn't make sense. Like, so there's no collaboration, there's no cooperation, no. And I said, look, merge these units. I'll create one clean brand identity and go to market. Mm-hmm. They're like, no. And I was looking, okay, how do I solve the problem? Again, I'm trying to be creative rather than complain. Yep. And I looked at the market and I went, emerging things. This is in 2012. Mm-hmm. Cloud, mobility, security, or big data was becoming a big thing.
It was.
Right? And I was like, big data is the closest to my journey of what I've traveled. Data for decision making using AI, natural language processing. Previously it was that workflow project management product. So it's always been that. So I thought, let me pick that niche. Went and pitched them on a business case of creating a offering to be a data and AI expert business unit within that. And they went, no, the analysts in the market will, tank the stock because of changed strategy, blah, blah, blah. And Wendy, I had this feeling in my gut that said, I can't afford to do this because I literally am in debt and I need the security of the money. But I can't afford not to do this because of the misalignment. And I said, this is cancerous environment. I'm not staying here. That was me jumping. And I went back to my wife and I said, this is what I want to do. And she's like, you got us into this, you get us out of this, whatever. I trust you, Sid. You've got 100% backing.
Wow.
Bless her, truly. And so that's it. Like, it was like, so I didn't have a job for long. It was a couple of days and I went, this is not right. So I jumped, launched Contexty, positioned it as a specialist in...
Were you on your own at that time?
I was on my own.
Yeah.
There was one other guy in the New South Wales team that I was meant to be managing. And I said, look, there's this whole emerging market coming around Hadoop and big data and unstructured. Do you know anything about this? And he goes, yeah. John Zanti, shout out brother, he joined me. So a handful of the people that had backed me last time, again, put in money.
Wow.
And I said, guys, this is a services firm. I'm raising money because I need to pay myself. So I was very transparent. I go, I don't actually know what we're going to do. I wouldn't really invest if I was you, but I'm raising, so I'm letting you know. They're like, shut up, Sid, we're backing you, here you go.
Wow.
And so I raised a decent round to be able to bring on very senior people. That's how we started getting into the market, and then eventually built it into a 80% annuity, multi-million-dollar business around data platform managed services. We served Seven West Media for the Rio Olympic Games, Caltex, SAI Global, 100 other Australian enterprises. We got in, beat Accenture and all these other players that came late. Did the partnership with Cisco and Telstra, launched the Big Data Center of Excellence.
Yep.
Kicked off the podcast series called Show Innovation, where I interviewed Victor Dominello, the innovation minister at the time. Really good alignment, and then got acquired by Versant, and then the rest is history.
What a journey. So to wrap up, I'm going to tell you what I've learned, and then I'd love maybe a little bit of a summary. I think some of the themes that I've heard from you is, I really like, what was it? It was the mirror, the whistle, and the compass. That to me,
I'm impressed.
That to me is actually extremely a very transferable mentoring strategy or framework that anyone can take away, and I thank you for sharing that with us. So I also see one thing that a lot of people don't have, and that's the element of risk. And you've taken risks without necessarily having all of the answers, and that's something that I actually really like about your style. For anyone that's listening or is afraid of taking a risk, you're a shining example of somebody who can take a risk, and even if you have a massive nuclear fail, you can come back from it. You just have to get yourself back up and refocus.
Yeah, look, I'll add a few more things to that in terms of the risk factor. One is, I'd say, look, you need to be aligned to where you are at this point in time in life. Not everyone is ready for everything all the time, and you got to honor that. Like, whatever your intuition is telling you, trust it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about what Sidney's saying.
Are you talking about time in your life as in, like, you just had a family, or
however way you want to
justify
justify it.
Okay.
However way you want to justify it, be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up saying, "Oh, I'm not a risk taker." You know what I mean? It's okay.
Okay.
Maybe it's not for everybody, and maybe this level of risk is, and there's variations. But I am inspiring you to live a full life, right? And sometimes, all the time, it requires to do things that it goes into the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And you think you're safe because you've got a safe job. Things can happen anytime. So not taking action is probably more risky than you realize towards where you want to go.
Yeah.
Above all, be loving to yourself. Don't beat yourself up because we're the whistle here, by the way, Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
We're telling others, don't take risk and it's okay. Maybe it's not okay for them. What I'm saying is that's also good. Key takeaways from me now have been, one, massively align on anything that you're going to do. So if I'm not aligned to an action, if I wasn't aligned to coming onto this interview, I just wouldn't do it. It doesn't matter what kind of exposure it's going to create me and the love I have for you. But if I wasn't aligned, I shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I'd say alignment is important. You then take that into the work you do in business with your teams, and I'm talking to the leaders out there. You want to create alignment around how we go about and how we work, and you want to set the values and the virtues. I mean, at Contexty, I was so sure that I'd learned this thing that I have to align everyone on values and virtues that I actually formulated into our presentation. So slide number 1, to any customer or partner, we will talk about our values, right? Which failure was one of them. Mm-hmm. We will talk about how we handle failure, right? So alignment is important. The other big thing I learned from my journey, have the fight early.
What does that mean?
Firstly, it's within yourself. If you know there's an issue, don't, spend the time you need to resolving it, and then if someone needs a conversation, a situation needs addressing, have the fight early. Because the longer you leave it, actually the worse it gets. So now I say, have the fight early, because you might end up with a bloody nose, but what you want to do is avoid brain hemorrhage. I left my US venture to brain hemorrhage. There was no coming back from that. Had I had the fight early, which I chickened away from initially, because I felt things weren't aligned to me, and there's, by the way, 100%, there's no right and wrong. I'm not blaming my co-founder. It's misalignment. I should have called it out, right? I should have stepped up, whatever. So lots of learnings there, but have the fight early because you're avoiding, and then look for the signals. Whatever you want to do, the universe is providing the opportunities. So stop wallowing in your story and look for the blessing that's there.
That's awesome advice. Awesome. So thank you so much, Sidney, for joining the chat. I hope you've taken something away from this conversation if you're listening, and good luck with your next venture.
Likewise. And to
now, actually, before we wrap up, I did forget to ask you, how can people get in contact with you? And if they want to get a little bit of insight into what Impact Ladder does, I'll definitely put your details in the show notes. But if you want to just give us a bit of a quick snapshot around Impact Ladder.
Sure. So you can find me on all the socials. The handle is Sidney Minassian, so Instagram, LinkedIn, and so on. So and I put out weekly walk and talk videos for those who see it, and I all talk about one of the pillars that I talk about, like strategy, go-to-market, leadership, growth, and innovation. And I currently am doing two things. One is an advisory role. I get engaged by companies from scale-ups to even some large enterprises that are pulling me into work at the CEO level, advising them on growth. And as I said, half the work is the strategic innovation, AI, go-to-market things, and the other half is how do you bring out the best versions of people. And as I've shared a couple of the tools and frameworks that I use there. And then my other gig is I do keynote speaking, so getting invited to speak at events and panels and kickoffs and whatever, and I bring this kind of experience and battle scars, and hopefully it lands with people. So
I'm sure it does.
Thank you for asking.
So thank you so much, Sidney.
Pleasure.
All right, thanks for joining us, and hope you join us for our next episode on the chat.
I wanna cry. I wanna hide. I wanna